guys. A really good song came on. I always put it on shuffle, but it's always fun when the good ones come on. Oh, hey, Druid. Thank you, ma'am. Hi, Bonnie. It is so good to see you. No apologies necessary. I'm always glad when any of my friends can stop by. So happy Friday Eve. Where does the week go? You know? So today's going to be sort of an easy day. I'm going to, of course, read from the Chintz Book, but I pulled up some pictures that I haven't shown you guys. Thank you. You probably haven't seen the bangs if you haven't been here in a while. Of course, I'm regretting them now because I'm sweaty and, the bangs. Anyway. But yeah, I have some quilt show pictures to show you, contemporary quilts, but there were some that just blew me away. And this is from a show in April up in Pennsylvania. So we'll look at that. And then the Chintz Book. And I hope you guys enjoyed the Chinsult from Monday. I still can't get over that. And I'm kind of like, I feel like you really have to be in this crowd to get it. But I posted on Instagram. If you missed Monday, go look at my Instagram and see my reel. And I've got the full text of well, it wasn't MacIver Percival. He was just quoting, but the Chinsult from The Spinster, 1719, I believe was the date. So let's see. Before I get started, I have to go to a benefit today, you guys. So I have to, I'm gonna have to keep an eye on the time, shut down on time because I have to go put on like a decent shirt. It's a benefit for there's a nonprofit that supports my husband's park. He's a park manager, and they do this annual fundraiser, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm an introvert, and I like my people like this, where they're not gonna come shake my hand and touch me, and there's no politicians there. Unfortunately, that's how benefits go. So I grin and bear it because I like to support my husband, and they usually have good food and drink. And it's only once a year, so. And of course, it's for a good cause. So that is my evening coming up. And I have weekend plans to finish up some projects, and so hopefully I can share that on Monday. And it's Father's Day. So, to do something nice for my husband, as he is a father. So, real quick, before I show you quilts, you guys want to see something funny? It's a long story, but basically a loved one gave my mom some pictures. And to preface this, when I was in high school, I worked in a party supply store / costume shop. And so the woman that owned it was a very close family friend, still is a very close family friend, and she made a lot of the costumes, and they're really good. And then, of course, some she bought from, suppliers, like, she had Batman and Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. But here's your girl. I'm going to say, my little flapper dress, I'm going to say this is about 1988, 1989. All 125 pounds of me soaking wet. I was about the same height as I am today, but yeah, a little slip of a girl. So anytime somebody says that I don't look my age, hey, Quiltish, because y'all, I'm 50. So anytime anybody says I don't look my age, I'm like, yeah, but look at this fetus. I look my age compared to this. So funny just to look at this, and I'm like, oh, this waif of a child. Sweet summer baby. Anyway, sometimes it's like really cringe to look at old pictures of yourself, and sometimes you're like, aw, wasn't I cute? If only I could go back and talk to that girl. So let's look at some quilts, you guys. Like I said, this is from the Lebanon Lancaster Quilt Show, and this quilt show is a pretty old one. It has bounced kind of back and forth between Lebanon and Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which they're close together, sort of Amish country. But, you know, based on facilities and stuff, they've kind of bounced around, and they were in downtown Lancaster, I guess maybe last year or in the past couple years, and that didn't work out for people because I think parking was bad and all that stuff. So they moved it back to Lebanon, and oh, thanks, Bonnie. Yeah, you know, the 80s with the hair and the, yeah. So anyway, this quilt show featured, so I don't think I really got around much to the vendors so much. I visited a few, but mostly I just looked at the quilt show, and there were multiple guilds there. And, you know, some of them were beginners, you know, and I didn't really get a whole lot of pictures of those. You know, I was really looking at the really, like, knock me over with a feather quilting, and just some of the contemporary quilts that have, like, fun subject matter and stuff was really what I was looking at. So I just thought I'd show you those. And fingers crossed, I got all the names. So, you know, always try to take a picture of the little placard that's with them, so you can, you know, it's important to give people credit and kind of know what the quilt's about, maybe the title, stuff like that. So we will flip through those. What else was I gonna say? Oh, if there's anybody's name that comes up that you know, let me know. Because, I mean, besides giving them credit, I would like to let them know we looked at their quilt. So let me scooch on over here to the other screen. All right. So this quilt was in, I think, kind of like the first section guild. And I think we'll get to which the guild is in a minute, but I thought this was so cute. I think this is a Joe Avery pattern. And, I mean, it's just charming because of the subject matter. You know, it's like sewing machines, thread, teapots, you know, all this cute stuff, kitchen-y stuff. There's luggage, a cat. But I thought the quilting is just really amazing. I mean, this is custom quilting. Hey, Robin. And it's just so cute. I mean, just cute. So that was the first one I looked at. And of course, I had to get close-ups of these buttons, and then look at the quilting on that. How it's like the reflection on the jar, and then this little kind of continuation of the button shape. So charming. And so this was by Lori Memon, and then quilted by Seamless Sewing Arts in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. And this is by the Mainline Quilters, and they're a Philadelphia area group. And yeah, this is Joe Avery. And I'm not sure, it says, look carefully at the quilting. You'll be surprised at the details, especially in the luggage. I really couldn't see anything like particularly specific in the, I don't know if I missed it. I don't know if there's something I missed here. It's very busy fabric. It's very pretty, but I'm not sure what I missed. But I mean, the quilting and all the other parts was just, like I said, knocked me over with a feather. There's some stuff in the show where I'm just like, wow. And there's one area we're going to get to where the woman that quilted all this stuff, I'm like, she must never stop, because there were so many quilts that had her name on it, and there were like applique stuff. So we'll get there. So I thought this was adorable. And at first I thought this was like an edge-to-edge design, but then I realized it's not. All of these leaves are in here. They're all tucked around these, you know, very angular pieced branches and birds. And I mean, just so cute. Look at them. All the little flowers and little insects and things. Just adorable. There, that one's got an insect. And this was called Sitting Pretty by Maureen Pratt. This one is just a nice, stunning, you know, sort of traditional contemporary. You know, again, this, you know, when people that could do feathers and then fit those feathers into, you know, spaces. And now I know that they make quilting rulers and templates that do this for you, but it's still just, you know, it's not as simple as just like tracing something. There's skill involved here. And I just was like, oh, wow, look at this. And then the second part of this is the reproduction fabrics. Oh, mwah, I love reproduction fabrics so much. Of course, the real deal is nice too, but, you know, there's so many cute reproductions. And I can't remember, I think she says what this, this pattern is. But yeah, look at these. Oh, these fabrics, and then just beautiful. And she's quilted, it looks like a couple of different, and I can't remember if she quilted this or if it was quilted by somebody else, but so they've used 2 different colors. So these feathers are like a bluish color, and then the inside in the blocks is a lighter color. And then they didn't stitch in the ditch, they did that ever so slight little scallop. I like that because it gives some movement to the blocks. I had to get up close to those cute fabrics. Oh, I love those fabrics. Okay, His Eyes on You is the name of it, and sewn by Jody Beck and quilted by Winnie McCarher. And she goes into, you know, the stash of the 30s fabrics, the reproductions. And let's see, Jody's Gems Quilting is the pattern, I think, right? Yeah. So, and this lady's reproduction stash, I'm very jealous. I have a big tub of them too, but I think she's got more than I do. Now look at this. Oh, I mean, Lone Stars or Stars of this Star of Bethlehem. I can't remember what the specific setting is called, but you know, again, just look at this. Look at this. I know I've told you guys a bunch of times how much I love Lone Stars. It is on my to-do list. A couple of you have given me like really helpful hints about making Lone Stars. I swear I'm going to get to it. But look at these little points in here for this. I don't know what you call this when it's outside of a New York Beauty. This just little sunbursty thing. And then just, the custom quilting in there is just beautiful. Yeah, I had to get some close-ups of those little slivers. Oh, this quilting. This is like, I don't know what you call this kind of quilting. It's sort of, it's not a meander because it's making a shape. It's making an organic shape, but I'm not sure what you call it. But then, of course, the feathers. And this was by Anne Randolph, quilted by Takako Pike. Yeah, you know, it's not really stippling though. Like, see, it's almost kind of leafy, but then it's like, I don't know what you call that. It's pretty. It breaks up, you know, it breaks up the space. This one was fun. You know, very modern. I just love the colors in this one. And I don't know if this was improv or not. So we'll find out. Doesn't have a whole lot of quilting on it. Okay, so this was inspired by Pieced Pod's workshop with Maria Schell. And this is by Allison Masterpasqua. Jazzed Pods and Keys. This one is fun. So I think some of these are Cafe fabrics, or well probably the little likely never do a star quilt druid. Never say never, but yeah, I mean, those are kind of like, you know, those are like the Mount Everest, I think, for some, you know, for some quilting patterns. But Anna Maria Horner maybe are some of these. Anna Maria Horner, yeah. I was trying to think when the bright florals are either her or Cave. But yeah, I think that this is her pattern too. I don't think this one has a whole lot of quilting on it, but it's just very bright and colorful. And yeah, it's, I know what it is. These were, I think, like a reverse applique. I think. I'm not sure. But I think it just has like stitch in the ditch for the quilting. So yeah, designed by Anna Maria Horner and sewn by Maureen Locke. So this makes really fantastic use of a border print. And, you know, again, these kind of things are just amazing to me when I, you know, look in here and look at how they've pieced this stuff. you know, on one hand, you're kind of like, oh, is it a panel? But no, this one is pieced. This one is literally all these bits and pieces are pieced. Sometimes you will run into quilts that where it's a very beautiful panel that, you know, looks like a quilted. It's almost like a cheater kind of thing. But then, you know, some quilters can do this stuff. So I would really have to think about how to piece this thing and you know, dealing with these corners that jut out. It's a really interesting, you know, layout. And yeah, feathers. Once upon a time, I was kind of like, oh, there's feathers everywhere. But now that I know how difficult a feather is, I have such respect for feathers. And look at this one. These are like big fat feathers and they kind of curl up in the center. That's so cool. And then again, like I'm seeing a lot of this, and I guess this is maybe sort of more of a modern thing. Instead of stitching in the ditch to do this little scallopy deal, you know, I mean, I know that's an option instead of stitching in the ditch, and I think it's kind of easier. You know, you don't have to hit that exact little line, but I don't think I've seen very many antique quilts or vintage quilts that have that. More of this, so pretty. This looks like it was kind of maybe applique on top. That's maybe how she put it together, maybe. So let's see, Feather Star Medallion by Isabel Leninger, quilted by Barbara Persing. Oh, it's a Jenny Beyer, so I thought I recognized it. Jenny Beyer has a lot of that kind of stuff. These they're almost chintz-like. They're very, she traveled a lot. I know she went to India, and Jenny Beyer was one of the first people to kind of be like a, you know, like a famous pattern, or famous, not pattern designer, but she's a pattern designer, but famous fabric designer. She was one of the first people that had like her name on it. You know, today we expect to see, you know, any contemporary fabric you buy, you kind of, you know, some of it's just made by the company, you know, they don't have anybody's name on it, but we really do expect to see names, like Anna Maria Horner, perfect example. You know, she makes a very specific kind of fabric, and you know, you expect to see her name on it. But Jenny Beyer was one of the first. And I've met her. I know her. Okay, so the mainline quilters, their little placard here was towards one side. I don't know how I missed it in the beginning, but anyway, 49 years on the Philadelphia Historic Main Line. So I thought that was pretty cool. They've been together a long time. That's really cool to see with a quilt guild. Oh, there's a website too, mainlinequilters.org. And then this one I thought was really cute. And I thought that this is an edge to edge, I think, but it's an interesting one. It's sort of like a flowery thing. I've never seen that before. And this one was called House and Trees by Debbie Payton, quilted by Diana Wood of 9 Little Stitches. Yeah, pattern is Tiny Town by Pen and Paper Patterns. I've made some of her stuff before. Very cute stuff. This one, a lot to look at. A lot of movement. I think this is a kaleidoscope pattern. Not to be confused with like the traditional kaleidoscope. And I see things like this that are put together. The piecing is the kaleidoscope, which is amazing. But it's so very different than, say, the kaleidoscope of, you know, vintage and antique quilts, where just the piecing all together creates a kaleidoscope-like experience. This is literally pieced to look like that. And I took a close-up again. This is, if I remember, so let's see, there's some metallics in here, there's some batiks in here. There's just some interesting prints. I really liked this because even though I don't necessarily respond to the colors in this one as much, I just really liked, I mean, there's, you know, the decisions that she made, the fabrics that she put together, I just thought were so brilliant, you know. It looks like you're looking into a kaleidoscope. And also the quilting too. You know, this is like a loopy thing, and then there's some other shapes going on in here. There's sort of pointy feathers. So yeah, there's custom quilting in that. And so, yeah, Kaleidoscope. Sewed by Lori Memon, quilted by Winnie McCarr. So this is another quilt by the same person that we looked at before. Ricky Tim's Cool Kaleidoscope Method of Design. And here's their little quilt. I thought this was so cute. There's a couple of special quilts I'll show you that were, they're not part of the show necessarily, just a part of telling you about things. But I thought this was cute with the star there as the train, whatever, train engine. I don't think it has a date on it. So there's a bunch of people that worked on this, and I don't know if this is a new piece or not. Okay. So they had more than a few of these don't touch the quilts. You're right, Bonnie. Yeah, it's their guild logo. So this was the first one, and of course, Sunbonnet Sue with her little white mitten. Only white gloves touch quilts. And it's, you see this at quilt shows, because especially ones where it's a lot of the general public coming in. This is a free show to go to, so I don't want to disparage people that would go to a quilt show who are not quilters, but people who are quilters and appreciate quilts kind of know this already. But the general public, more likely to go to a free show than a not free show, do have to be told this, because their sticky-handed little children will touch things. This, so this fabric, I believe, is digitally printed, and it's like a deep space kind of like, I don't know what you call it. Kind of a novelty fabric almost. And it's just these little pops of light. It kind of gets supposed to look like stars, or not really fireworks, more like stars. But when you pull back on this, oh my gosh, like what? I mean, it's stunning. And again, like these, I don't love those novelty fabrics myself, but what they did with this, I thought was really amazing. And I think this is an edge-to-edge pattern that's quilted in there. So close up of the block. I mean, really, and I mean, it's a simple block, and it's kind of, it's got that, not really an Irish chain, but it's got that sort of Irish chain, like, the blocks coming out, the alternating blocks coming out, but just really stunning when it's all together. And this one is, I think it's Susan Hannah. Combination of stars and Irish chain blocks, and called Purple Starburst. And this is a different guild. Hey, Miss Rawl, I'm glad that you're willing to spend your 30 minutes between meetings with us. We are looking at Lancaster Lebanon Quilt Show quilts today. Okay. This one, I love a schoolhouse. But this one also has really an interesting quilt design in it, and again, it's an all over pattern, but it's got some interesting movement. It's like this kind of swirly thing. I think this is a butterfly in there, and like a bee and flowers. It's just really pretty. I had never seen one like that before. A little close up of that. It's so charming. These are really pretty fabrics too. So this is Strawberry Crossroads, made by Alice Steele. Long Arm by Sharon McKnight. And it's a Fig Tree and Company. So yeah, I thought I recognized their stuff. Oh, look at the strawberries. Cute. And this one. It's so adorable. I think, so yeah, this one's not wool. I think this one's all just regular fabrics, regular cottons. But look at this. It's a little chariot with that's made of a pumpkin, and then it's got squirrels. The chariot drivers as the horses. And then there's a little squirrel down here, a little squirrel there. Ah. I love squirrels. Oh, and there's some squirrel fabric. I missed that before. Just adorable. I love a squirrel. Oh, and you know what? Did I miss getting... I think I missed getting the name of this person. Oh, my bad. This one, very cool. It's a melon, and I left that this dimensional blossom on there. That is so neat. And then also this one had some interesting, I think, this is like a machine stitched edge. So it's like a fancy stitch, or to look like an embroidery stitch. Oh, I did get the name. Okay, so Anne Winkle made Pumpkin Hill with the cute squirrels. And it looks like the watermelon applique was also hers. This was cool. So you often see these sort of basket and floral things, you know, Aunt Anne or Auntie Anne's, isn't that what it is, Auntie Anne's? Or is that the Auntie Anne pretzels? I'm thinking of the iron-on transfers. I'm probably getting the name wrong. But, you know, these were so common. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, recognize those. But they've been interspersed with these really funky stars. And I was like, oh, that's really stunning. I really like using those as the alternate blocks. And I think these are new ones. I don't think these aren't vintage. I don't think. They're newly done, I believe. That was a really nice one. Lazy Daisy baskets. Brenda Jones. Brenda Jones. This. Oh my gosh, you guys. Aunt Martha, thank you. I was Aunt Anne. Obviously, I've got hot dogs and pretzels on my mind. Look at this. So, this another star, but this you know, bespoke quilting in here. I just, you know, long armers amaze me with their creativity and, you know, how they choose to do these things. And also I really like the fact, like how this one, you know, it was very low volume and it just, you know, just sort of blossoms out from this center. And then it's got these sort of darker tips, which is very effective. There's more of the quilting. Oh, there's like a little heart. Oh, I love that. And more. I'm sure I was annoying people because I was like sticking my arm in there to get pictures. So this is Susan Falcone. It's titled Floating Texas Star. Quilted by Dawn Cinnamon. Oh, so it took third place in the November 2023 Quilting on the Line Quilt Show. I think I just took this one because I love a log cabin. It's a very good one. And they had quilts hung back to back too. I'm not sure what this one is on the other side. So this is by Penny Sawyer. The Manx, it's a Manx log cabin too. So Manx log cabins are interesting because of the way you construct them. You don't actually measure, and they've got like kind of, they're a little bit flappy because of the way you make them. I took a class in Manx log cabins, and they're fun. They're fun to make. This is interesting. I have made a tiny quilt that did this kind of thing, but of course not with the points. I mean, this is like a New York beauty, and I'm not sure what had a baby, and I mean, yowza. But I mean, the way this stuff comes together, and it takes you a minute to have to look and see, like, what is a block? You know, how did all this go together? I honestly am not sure I can tell just looking at this picture. You guys might have a better idea if you've made something like this, but you know, I'm pretty sure that it's like, I don't know. I don't know like where it cuts off, because you're like, well, no, I don't know. Are they like 3/4 blocks? And I don't know. I don't know how they do it. And it also the fact that it's a octagonal quilt too. It's not square. And it is by Peg Dougherty. Both pieced and quilted by Peg. Oh, look at that. Those points. Oh, so amazing. And even knowing that they are likely foundation pieced, or maybe not, but possibly foundation pieced, still, it doesn't minimize how amazed I am at this kind of stuff. This one, I just love these little blocks. They're so simple, but you know, they're applique, and then you know, surrounded by the feathering of those half square triangles. Just, you know, again, really charming, and I love viney borders. I've made one quilt with a sort of an undulating vine, and it's an endeavor, especially to get it even at the corners. Look at those beautiful little applique, and they've got this sort of scribbly, meandering back there. Right? Yeah, it is definitely. And you know, Baltimore album blocks can be so overwhelming. So I like these kind of little doodads. You know, I mean, not to say that these were simple or didn't take a lot of work, because I mean, there's still a lot of hand applique in that, but it's a little bit more manageable than some of the Baltimore album quilts. I've been looking at one that was in Dr. Dunton's, one of his scrapbooks, and I've taken pictures of it, and I started working on one of the blocks, and it took me forever, and I'm still not done with it, but it involved appliquing, like, I don't know, it was like 25 velvet strawberries. And I was like, oh Lord, it's gonna take me the rest of my life. So this is also Peg Dougherty. Look at this. This was amazing. And you know, I know that this is foundation pieced, but the color selection in here, I mean, you can imagine this, and I'm not sure if she cropped this or if this is like what the pattern looked like, but you can imagine if she did this like in lifelike colors, how different this would look. And my assumption is it's a lion. I mean, because it's cropped, there's no mane, but it looks pretty much like a lion to me. Or maybe a tiger, I don't know. But I mean, you can imagine what this would look like if it was done in different colors. It might not be as enticing, honestly, because the colors are like really what makes it pop. Yes, Lion of Judah. So it's by Alice Steele. Oh, look at and this teeny little scribbly lines in there. Crazy. Amazing. And this, oh my gosh, look at all of those colors in there. And these are tiny little blocks that all come together. And the points, oh, good points. So this is Sherry Joins again. So you're seeing some of the same names coming up. Some of these folks are prolific quilters for sure. This is named Wild and Goosey. And this one is fun for Hexies. Although I think that this is probably not English paper pieced. This is most likely just pieced. I could be wrong, but it was my guess that this was just pieced, like regular piecing instead of English paper piecing. There's some really fun fabrics in here, and there might have been some Liberties. I don't know, sometimes Liberties, they slip in there, and see. Radiant Star, Peggy Williams. Yeah, Liberty Block of the Month. So, yeah, those are Liberties. There's probably more of them than I realize. They might all be Liberty for all I know. Another one with some really cool quilting. These, I mean, they're kind of like a medallion sort of thing. And then these blocks have that scallopy thing, but it's even more pronounced. So, and I like this combination of stars and this Irish chain kind of thing. It's, you know, it's very pleasing to look at. And I don't know that my picture's all that great, but you can see it's this cluster of 4 in the center, and then it makes like a big diamond around, you know, with the other star blocks. And then I believe the corners then are star blocks. So this is by Trudy Daniels. She calls it My 30 Stars. 30s stars. And look at that little fabric. Oh, this one now. Not a huge fan of these colors. But I mean, this is like, I mean, I guess this qualifies as Bargello, I think. But I mean, just the way that this comes together, like, so perfectly. Again, stunning. I don't know what else to say. And if you're not familiar with Bargello is basically like you're kind of strip piecing things, and then you slice them the other way, and then you offset them a certain way. And there's different looks you can get by like how far you offset them. And I think Bargello is based on an embroidery or needlepoint pattern called flame stitching, where the stitches make this kind of zigzaggy, jagged look. But yeah, you can do, and I think there's another Bargello one in here. But yeah, you could, you know, do these like really interesting looking things. And this is so interesting to me that it looks like this ribbon that's been, you know, placed together like that. And just a close up of, you know, you can see what the rows originally were. And then, hey, Kate, lots of starch to do that. Yeah. So she called this one Pumpkin Delight. Okay, and this is Red Rose Quilters. This is moving on to another guild. So Infinity. Okay, this is a white quilt. And for some reason, the Pumpkin Delight, I think the pumpkin one's over here. Usually white quilts do not photograph well. I took a chance, and this one photographed okay because the lighting was pretty good in there. But look at this. That center, you know, it reminds me of, I mean, all kinds of different things, but this kind of reminds me of ceilings with that really intricate plaster molded, you know, like, I don't know what they call them, like rosettes and things. That's kind of what that reminds me of. Like, you can imagine a chandelier hanging from that center, you know, if you put this on the ceiling. So just really stunning. I mean, and you know, this is all about the quilting. There is not a bit of piecing in here other than making the fabric bigger. And it's entirely possible that they used 108-inch fabric, so there literally is no, yeah, tin ceiling. Yep. But if you've ever been in a colonial home, I keep thinking of like Kenmore in Mount Vernon. They have this plaster work in the ceiling that's looks like this. My labor of love. Oh, it took her 10 years. 10 years to complete. This, I love this. This is wool applique. And just very, very cute and charming. I like wool applique. I love applique, period, but wool applique is a lot of fun. And I think this might be a block of them. I can't remember. Let's see. 4 Seasons of Flowers. Okay. She says long arm quilted. I'm not sure where I'm guessing it's this outer border. Maybe? I'm not sure. Now look at this. Wool applique on wool. I have done wool applique. It's not something I've done a lot. But some of my work is in wool applique. This is just another one, like, again, just these stunning little, you know, I mean, they're almost kind of like album quilt-like flowers, you know, groups of things, but they're not sashed, so they kind of all meld into each other. Yeah, I like this kind of pickle color on the background. Just really cool colors. There's a close-up of it. Very nice quilting also. Very nice bespoke quilting. It's by Suzanne Pritchard, alias Pickle. Because it is Kona Pickle. I remember that because I've actually, the quilt I'm sitting on at the moment actually uses Kona Pickle as one of its colors. Oh, and that's an Adidas Sitar laundry basket quilts. Yeah, her stuff is really cool. So, again, going backwards, Red Rose Quilters, this is their info. Oh, okay, maybe I didn't understand the quilt. Yes. So, Robin is correct, yes. I've seen people do it on cottons, but yeah, usually it is wool backgrounds with wool on the front. Or, I've also seen people do it with flannel, cotton flannel, and then wool too. I'm trying to think, oh gosh, who's the quilter? I think she's South African. Her name is, oh, you guys. Of course, I'm totally blanking on her name. I'll think of it. I'll think of it like right after the stream is over. Sue. Oh, I almost had it. I'll think of it. It's another one. So stunning. Spargo. Thank you, Robin. See, this is the great thing. Robin can finish my sentences a lot of times. Yes, you Spargo. I want to say that her stuff is wool on cotton, I think. Much of what she teaches and what her pieces are. I thought this one was really cool, kind of reminding me of like hex patterns and just fun stuff. This is by Barbara Wilkie. And this is a Becky Goldsmith pattern. I knew that I recognized that too. Becky Goldsmith that makes some really cute stuff. Oh, and this is the York Quilters Guild. This is now a third Quilters Guild. I mean, again, more of these. Stunning. Quilt roadies. I'll have to check that out. This is terrible. I've not followed as many quilty things on YouTube as I should, you know, to keep up with what other people are doing. If only there were more hours in the day. Just lovely. So this was another Barbara Wilkie. And if I'm remembering correctly, she's got a lot in here. This lady is a prolific appliquer. Look at this. I mean, like more of the same, but also totally different looking with these different colors and this different layout. There's a lot of sort of batiks and stuff in here. I'm not usually a fan of batiks, but they do get really interesting when you cut them down tiny into little pieces. Gretchen Gibbons used to be in your guild. So was she the quilter on this last one? Oh, Pattern Design by Gretchen Gibbons. Okay. Cool cool. So this one is Laundry Basket Quilts. Another Barbara Wilkie or Wilk. Oh, she also does Stitch Roadies floss tube. Interesting. You guys, you know people. I think this one I really like. This is I think this might be a Brimfield blocks, but I thought the quilting on this one was really neat. These sort of half feather, and then that sort of, I don't know if you would call that piano key quilting, I don't know. But this really dense stuff in between, that was pretty neat. And then this is it's Tula Pink fabric. You can see the frog. I'm kind of zooming in too tight here, but there's the frog face, and then you can recognize some of these centers for stuff. It's a better picture, yeah. A beetle and a bird. And that quilting. Oh, and I liked this, the way they did that graduated loopy thing. Like, loopy things I can do with a long arm. Yes, I was correct. It is Brimfield. Pieced by Vicki Bowman, machine quilted by Kathy Nauman. Now this is fun. These are two quilts of the same pattern, I think made by different people. I can't remember. Ah, usually I'll cross stitch. But look at these. So that's Jill Coleman, and then, oops. Yeah, they're one is Barbara Wilkie or Wilk, and the other one's Jill Coleman. But look, I mean, they're identical, but also so different because of the color choices. I thought this was really so cool to have these together. And also, then you can see some of the differences. Like, hers has more of the little dots here, the little, I guess they would be berries. She did a different thing here. She has less berries. I think she did less berries along here too. Little bit different, just a little bit. And so they may be turned differently. So this one on the right hand side has that little star shape, and then hers has this little trumpet. So I don't know if they're oriented differently or something, the way that they put the blocks together. Very neat. Oh, this, so visually stunning. This with the black and white. And I think this is fussy cut. These are fussy cut triangles. I don't think that is pieced in there anyway. I think that's just a fussy cut. So, I mean, just the movement with the black and white is so, so cool. So this is another Barbara Wilkie. I told you. This lady is amazing. Oh, look at this. You guys know what this is, right? This is a Dear Jane. This might be one of the handful of people in the world that have actually finished their Jane. I think Dear Jane, and if you have ever started this quilt, do not feel bad, because I think it's like considered the number one, you know, still in the closet UFO work in progress quilt. But you know, the people that do finish them, I'm just like gasp. You know, they're beautiful, and this one's all blue and white. I know I think I've seen a red and white one, but I don't think I've ever seen a blue and white one. And there is someone in our midst who actually, one of our lurkers, who has completed a Dear Jane, and they showed it to me, and it was amazing. But yeah, I bow down to people that can finish this, because there's a lot of piecing in there, and a little bit of applique, but mostly piecing. I mean, look at that. I can't remember how many blocks are in a Dear Jane. It's absurd. I mean, look at that. So tiny. So And hi, Mind Art, by the way. You know, I don't know if it's every 2 years or not. I think that maybe because of the pandemic and stuff, they might have skipped some years. But yeah, I think this woman she makes a lot of quilts. I don't know. You know, and this could be over a period of time, you know. I don't think she did all these quilts like in 1 year, but. So this was Blue Jane by Kathy Arndt. So 225 patterns from the 1863 Jane Stickle quilt. It took her 17 years to complete it. So this is a terrible picture, but it does. That says 17 years. Oh, this is a better picture of it. Yeah. 5,500 pieces. Yeah. This is another Bargello. This one I thought the quilting was really neat with these circles. I mean, definitely, you know, it's juxtaposed against the angularity of the Bargello. Yeah, you know, again, not my favorite colors, but still just really amazing how this comes together. And, you know, the strip piecing piece of it is simple, right? But it's getting this to come out of that is just amazing. I mean, you know, how it goes up into this like little skinny point, that little skinny strip that they had to get in there. Wild. So that's Terry Yarnell. This one was interesting because from a distance, I was like, what in the heck is going on with this quilt? Just got these 9 dots. But it has got this amazing white on white quilting in there, and the dot is the center of the Dresden plate. And those Dresden plates are separate from the background. They are a lightly printed, like white on white print. And I think, yeah, some of the backgrounds are different too. They're not all white. So it's all this like white on white, you know, prints and things, and like beautiful, amazing. I would have probably gone blind. I've been doing some low volume stuff myself, and it's kind of like, it's hard when you've got, you know, white on white or black on black. Your eyes, you gotta have good eyes, you gotta have good light. And there was a picture of it straight on. And I mean, yeah, like just, and I think these are like half blades. Yeah, each of the blades is cut in half. So there's a lot of work in this. So this with Eileen Bozarth. During the pandemic. You know, that's the other possibility, Mod Art. Some of these people that have multiple quilts, it could be that this is their pandemic work. Would not surprise me at all. This is another one, like I said, I love the little schoolhouses. I love houses. And these like really beautiful appliques in here. And this one, I know it's supposed to be, or I'm assuming it is supposed to be some type of like vessel, I guess. But I swear when I looked at this, I was like, looks like a turnip. I'm just so delightful. Ah, look at the bunnies. Right? It definitely looks like a turnip. Little bunnies. This is another Barbara Wilkie, or Wilk. I'm not sure how her last name is pronounced. Oh, this. I often don't have a lot of patience to do the same thing over and over. So mad respect for somebody that appliqued 4 of these. Because that's a pretty intricate applique. You've got all those itty bitty little circles, the berries or you know, buds or whatever they're meant to be. And you know, the fact that they did them with these batiks and these really pretty what do you call this, that sort of Venetian kind of swirling, marbling, I'm sure kept this interesting, but I just think like I would have gotten the first one done and been like, yeah, this is gonna be it. But yeah, they did all 4 of those. It's just amazing. Gorgeous. And this is Jill Coleman. And let's see, designed by Irene Blank. I'm guessing, oh, yeah, quilted by Jill Coleman too. Yeah. Another really cool one. This was neat how this little, it's a log cabin, but just the way it's set, it looks like these little, like a Greek key pattern. You know, like I always say, love the log cabin because it can look so different depending on the way you set it and the colors that you use as you go around the center. And vines. I love the vines. This is Jill Coleman as well. And this is Guild Project with 5 other members. Oh, yeah. Okay, so this one also, Barb Wilkie. I gotta meet Barb. She is, she's something else. She gets a lot done. Her quilts are really cool. But yeah, I think what they do is you start with the center and then everybody adds like a border. And I mean, whoever has to do the last border has more work to do. Now, granted, if you're all working together, you end up with 5 quilts and you're not necessarily always doing the last border, but, whatever quilt you have to do that last border on, you have a lot of work to do. More work than the others. Another very cool. A lot of the people here in this particular, I guess, York, they do applique. They do a lot of applique. And York is very close to me, so I'm kind of like, maybe I'll join. So applique and piecing. This is piecing here. So our friend Barb, we gotta meet her. I have to go. I'm gonna make some calls. Does anybody know anybody in the York Quilters Guild? Oh, look at this one. Now, if I remember correctly, this is a vintage quilt. This one was not. This is, I think, in memoriam of somebody or from the collection of somebody. But again, very interesting subject matter. It's like a kind of Baltimore album quilty sort of looking thing. So, yeah. So this was inherited by Sarah Gutter, and it was made by Irene Berry of Colorado, 1999. And I think there's another one of her quilts too. We'll get around to it. This one was neat. I can't remember specifically. I think I just liked it. I just liked the way it looked. Yeah, get some quiet time for the grandkids. Yeah, I hear you. You have a wonderful weekend, Robin, and a wonderful Father's Day to your husband, and I believe your son is also a father. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Barb Calden is this one. Jelly rolls. Okay, so this is a true traditional kaleidoscope. And it, even though it's all straight lines, it looks circular like a kaleidoscope. Storm at Sea by Jenny Lair, quilted by Jill Coleman. We got to meet Jill too. Jill is prolific as well. Okay. This one. So it's very nice. It's a nice quilt, but some of these Santas, I got to tell you, are a little bit scary. Now, I know that she used a pattern like it was some type of old world Santas. And some of them are really great Santas, and some of them are, I don't want to meet this Santa in a dark alley. This Santa, he looks so serene with his little harp. This Santa, egads. Jenny Lair, I hope that you're not offended. Yeah, scary Santa. This one, oh my gosh, all those little tiny I guess they're 4 patches then that come together. And I mean, the planning, there was definitely some planning that went into this, you know, to get these stripes and then this whole movement situation going on. Diane Brisson. Paper cuts. And I think, if I remember correctly, I really love this fabric. So it was a plaid and then this little ditzy print. Very cool. I have wanted to make a paper cut quilt for some time, and just, you guys know, one day I will make an 8th day. Okay, so this is another one of those inherited quilts. So this was made in 1981. And yeah, that little ditzy print is so 1980s, 1970s. She says it's bad applique. Okay. All right, Irene. This one was fun. I took the picture of this because it's a very cool quilt, but also because I have a friend who has greyhounds. So, you know, I took the picture to send to her, but like, what a neat quilt in this kind of crazy quilted border. And I think this is another one of those, the Irene Berry quilts. She must have had greyhounds. Yep, inherited by Sarah. So this was 1997. This one, those gorgeous fabrics and just simplicity, but just stunning. I would love to have this on my bed. And I'm pretty sure these are all reproductions. I don't think any of this is old fabric. So Janet Chenot. Now this one is sort of a crazy quilt, but not like you would traditionally think of a crazy quilt. And I thought this was so fun. And now I think that this is vintage fabric, vintage and antique fabrics. I guess they'd be vintage. We're not quite at the 1930s and 40s being antique. But how fun. These big pieces. I love it. So this is Barb Colvin. Top was 2/3 finished by an unknown quilter. Finished the top using mostly feed sack fabric, on a piece muslin foundation. Yeah, this was really cool. And this was part of her bucket list to finish it. So. I thought these were some really pretty stars. This is another Janet Chenot. Very pretty. So these are Civil War era reproductions. And I think this one is very similar to another one we looked at. It might be the same quilt. I can't remember. I want to say the other one was kind of like reddish colors. This was more of like light pastels. That applique. Oh. You know, some people just do not like applique. So this is Jill Coleman. I'm trying to think if that other one was Jill Coleman or Barb Wilkie or Wilk. This is another fun one because all of these floral or flower appliques are all a little bit different. I didn't take the time to see if there's any repeats. I don't think there is, though. I literally think every single one of these is different. Is it another Adidas sitar? Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Her stuff is really cool. I actually have a pattern of hers. It's a kind of almost like a cobblestone type of quilt. It's a whole bunch of like little shapes and things. you know, like little motifs. It's got a very like album quilt kind of look to it, and I keep pulling it out and saying like I need to make this quilt, but I've never seen anybody else make it. So I would love to find, you know, a quilt that somebody has actually made the quilt. So this is designed by Kim McLean. This is a Jill Coleman. Maybe it was that last one was Adita. And this is, so I think this is Pickle Dish, which is a double wedding ring alternative, I guess, or I don't know how, I guess. Is that the way you would describe it? It's like a version of a double wedding ring is Pickle Dish. So they're little stars or little points instead of the blocks, or, you know, the shape. Squarish. Trapezoid. And I think this might be another one of those Irene Berry. Really cool fabrics. And I think this is all hand pieced and hand quilted. So yes, this is Irene Berry. And the one interesting thing, so this was a Thanksgiving wedding ring quilt. But like I said, I would call this Pickle Dish. But Irene Berry has this, you've seen this a couple times now, this pineapple that has this weird, like, thing on the side of it. I don't know what that's supposed to be, but I'm pretty sure it's a pineapple. It was in that other primitive basket quilt that she made. I think this one's fun because it is a bunch of different, like, random blocks. And who doesn't have a bunch of random blocks, right? Either you tried something and you were like, you know, or traded blocks with somebody, or, you know, orphan blocks that are vintage or antique. Jill Coleman. So this is like Jen Kingwell. Oh, okay. So this isn't. Well, let's see. What does she say? Collection of vintage odds and ends, blocks left over. Okay. So I guess that I don't know. I have some Jen Kingwell patterns. I don't think I have this one, and I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's the layout, like you would choose the different size pattern. I'm not sure. Jen Kingwell patterns are very, very intricate, so I guess I'm just not familiar with this one and how these other pieces. It says Wanderer's Wife, so I don't know if it's like based on that. I'm not sure. You know, sometimes it's like you really wish you could just talk to the quilter, because they would be able to tell you for sure. Ah, stunning. I just love anything that uses, I mean, it's very scrappy, that uses a bunch of different scraps. But then, you know, this outer part of it is, you know, very traditional. And this is another Jill Coleman. I think Jill has got Barb Wilkie beat. So yeah, and you know, I mean, so started with these blocks in 2009. And so I suspect some of these women probably these are multiple projects that they, then were able to finish probably over the pandemic. You know, possibly retired ladies that have time. Okay, so this was fun. This little one I think is cute. I love this because these little strip pieced double wedding ring pieces, and then these two, a vest. Who doesn't love a quilted vest? And then this part is quilted up here, this heirloom little gown. So this is Joanne Hammond christening gown. Oh, and I want to say, did she say, I think it's, let's see, her wedding gown from 1972 and made it into a christening gown. It's amazing. It's the Mini Melons, also Jill Coleman. I'm gonna meet her too. So Quilting on the Line Quilt Guild. This one is Yeah, this one I think were the earlier pieces that we saw was this guild. And so I love this one also. Don't touch the quilts. And so I think that is the last one. So you guys ready for some chintz? I had promised that I would take a picture of the plates in the Chintz book, and I finally did. I thought that there was more, and I guess just because I had flipped through and seen like the black and white plates, but the color ones, there's only 4 of them, but they are pretty spectacular, and I've held them up by now, but I thought we could really get in here in detail and look at these. I mean, this one, I never realized all these little things, little like strawberries, and I don't know if those are berries or something, little leaves, inside these little floofy chintzy things. And you know, this fruit basket is really one of the it's one of the very common chintz medallions, these center medallions. This one I think is a very old chintz pattern because it looks different, but it is still chintz. You know, the block printed, and this is only a quarter of the panel or the piece. This is the one corner. And then this one, this is so like Waverly upholstery fabric and wallpaper. That's what this reminds me of. My mom, you know, worked in multiple fabric stores when I was growing up. And the very last one she worked in was primarily upholstery stuff. And I just feel like I could walk in that place and this kind of stuff would just be crushing because it was, you know, very, very popular with Waverly. Yes, very chintz. And then this one is really interesting, and it is upside down. I thought I saved it the right way. Okay, so it's Princess Charlotte of Wales, married to Leopold, Prince of Saxe-Coburg, Saxon-Coburg. I think it's March 2nd, 1816. So this was specifically made for them and their marriage. Thought that was kind of interesting. And, you know, you've got these, you know, these devices in here that are specific to their kingdom. I don't know. However those families all come together, right? So I thought this one is my favorite one out of all of them. So, all right. Maybe we could find another chinsult today. So we are reading, as I said, the Chintz Book, Prince of Wales symbol. So she was Princess of Wales. He was Prince of Saxon-Coburg, right? She was George IV's only legitimate daughter, and she died during childbirth, and the next in line was Victoria. Ah, okay, so Princess Charlotte was before Victoria. Yeah, so, yes, quilters, that's what I was just going to say. Was it the feathers at the top, the prince feathers? Yeah. And it says, Ich dien. I don't know. That's ICH, that's like German, Austrian German. But yes, the prince is feather, not the princess. Feather. They're the same thing. Did you not know that? Okay, so where we left off, let me find my spot here. So we left off at chapter 6, The Days of Freedom. So, as a reminder, we are reading The Chintz Book by MacIv Percival, published in 1923. So just over 100 years ago. And has been interesting so far. I still am not able to find out anything about MacIver other than the fact that he was... Oh, really? The reaction to her death was like Princess Diana. Oh, yeah. I don't know much about Princess Charlotte. Those early days of Victoria's reign as well. I really, I know some kind of general facts about Queen Victoria too, but not a whole lot. This whole era, I guess the Georgian era on into the Victorian era is just, I know a little bit, not a lot. It was something when I was doing a lot of historical costuming. I was mostly kind of sitting in the late 18th century with things I was making and studying. And I had kind of started getting into early 19th century when, some stuff happened and I kind of had to set historic costuming aside. And, then quilts became more important, so. Okay, so Chapter 6, The Days of Freedom. It must always be a most difficult matter for those responsible for the government of a country to take steps which, while they increase the wealth of one part of the population, bring in their train for others losses almost amounting to ruin. Oh, never had a situation like that. Capitalism. The struggle between the interests of the woolen manufacturers and the would-be cotton manufacturers and printers had been a very long one, but in 1774 it came to an end and the long-desired freedom to print and decorate fabrics of pure cotton was granted. Now, if you remember, the big kerfuffle here was that the homegrown fabric people, the wool people in the UK were like, quit importing this stuff. We want to be able to do our homemade, homegrown fabrics and printing. So it really took these embargoes basically to get that to happen. From that year must be dated the real beginning of our vast cotton industry, because not only was cotton permitted to be decorated in Great Britain, but calico was allowed to be manufactured here for the first time. The story of Arkwright and his struggles has often been told, and while his difficulties were by no means over, when in 1774 permission was first granted for calico weaving to be practiced in England, one at least of the obstacles was removed. Now I'm trying to remember. I don't think that we talked about whoever Arkwright is, so hopefully he's going to tell us more. Up until 1774, all cotton goods were subject to an excise tax of threepence on each square yard, and calico, which was all imported from India, was taxed sixpence. The excise tax of threepence still continued on all cotton, but the English calico was included at the same rate. Taxes had also to be paid by the printers of cottons. They were amounted to threepence on each square yard in 1774, and they were raised by degrees in 1779 and 1782 to 15% of the value. This naturally made prices higher than they would otherwise have been and prevented printed cottons being used by cottagers and thrifty farm folk, who still continued to use woolen and linen, both for household purposes and personal wear. These were both cheaper than cotton, especially as they could have them spun at home and woven into whatever was required. There was in many localities a weaver who turned the homespun thread into those hard-wearing, everlasting stuffs that farmers and work people handed on from father to son and from mother to daughter. Now, you also remember at this time there was a little bit of the consumptuary laws going into effect that I think it was in the last chapter they talked about, like, the black market Indian chintzes were like at the top. The really wealthy people, they could get the black market stuff, and then kind of down the line you've got the home printed stuff is what the middle class had, and then the lower class, they were still wearing wool and linen. These taxes kept fluctuating from time to time, and as the industry progressed, formed a most valuable contribution to the exchequer. Oh, okay, Richard Arkwright, the first large-scale spinning and weaving factory and housing for workers. Later, he was the first home electrified, had his own power plant. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for looking that up, Bonnie. I knew his name sounded familiar. Richard Arkwright, yeah. So, a most valuable contribution to the exchequer and the government, realizing that the cotton trade was a considerable source of income, ceased to discourage it, so that, though heavily taxed, it was not crushed out of existence, as at one time seemed probable. The export trade was fostered, and when in 1778 the tax was fixed at 3 pence halfpenny a yard, 3 pence halfpenny a yard, all round on linen and cotton goods, this was refunded on goods sent out of the country, and in order to encourage home manufacture, foreign materials printed in England paid double. In order to supply the increasing demand, numerous printing works sprang up, especially in the north. Almost all the earlier print works were near London. Richmond, Old Ford, Bromley Hall, and West Ham in Essex, and various places along the Thames and its tributaries were the sites of the original calico printer shops. But towards the end of the 18th century, the trade moved towards the north. Probably the cheapness of fuel was one attraction. I'm guessing coal. But the large area of land required for the bleaching and drying of the enormous lengths of material that was used made it imperative that sites should be sought where the required ground could be obtained at a reasonable rate. Communications, too, were, though not good, at any rate better than they had been, and it was not so necessary that manufacturers should all cluster around the capital. These country manufacturers were energetic and capable businessmen, and were the first to take up any new invention and to adapt it to their needs. One of the greatest challenges that has ever taken place in the art of textile printing was the introduction of cylinders as a means of transferring the design to the material instead of blocks. So, and probably water powered. They were on the tributaries and around the Thames, so the cylinders was the big deal. It would easily be understood that this invention effected something like a revolution in the printer's trade. Instead of having to adjust painstakingly the design to each application of the block, seeing that the pattern keyed with the previous portion and that it was straight on the fabric, the cylinder was rotated, the calico passed between the rollers, and at each revolution a complete repeat of the pattern was printed off. Who was the inventor of this device? It is impossible to say. Neither has an exact date been authoritatively given. I feel like there is info about that now. I could be wrong. I could be mistaking that, but the principle must have been in the minds of many as one way of expediting printing, the slow hand process being quite insufficient to satisfy the increasing demand for printed cotton goods. But there were many difficulties to be overcome before it was commercially practicable, and doubtless many inventors were at work on the problem, arriving at fairly satisfactory results about the same time. Each manufacturer, too, desired to keep his own secrets to himself and would not publish abroad the fact that he had lessened the cost of production by mechanical means, fearing no doubt that his rivals would copy him and that customers would beat him down in price. So this actually happened. John Hewson, I believe, went from the UK, somewhere in Great Britain, to the US and opened his own factory in the New England area. I'm not sure, probably was Massachusetts, somewhere around Boston, I think. And he basically smuggled out the the print workings to start his own thing, and that was very scandalous at the time. So, according to Prasaz, Charles Taylor, and Thomas Walker, printed from wooden cylinders in 1770. A Scot named Bell is also mentioned as having been the first to apply the principle successfully. He is said to have sold his machine to the great firm of Livesey, Hargreaves, Hall and Company about 1785. It might have been Lowell. I'm not 100% sure. Hewson, the really interesting thing is Hewson did not have, as far as anybody knows, did not have any kind of good records of what was printed in his factory. And when we were reading Florence Pito's book, she mentioned that there is this quilt made out of dress fabrics that are assumed to have come from Hewson's factory. And so it makes sense that would kind of be in Lowell's not far from Boston, so it's somewhere in that range of places. So the description of Bell's machine is as follows. Before we get to that, look at this. So this is a chintz border, English late Georgian. I think that is very pretty. Kind of wonder what it looked like in color. Picture a lot of green, maybe some like sort of pinky colors for those flowers. So, description of Bell's machine is as follows. A polished cylinder several feet in length, according to the width of the piece to be printed, and 3 or 4 inches in diameter, is engraved with a pattern round the whole of its circumference and from end to end. It is then placed horizontally in a press, and as it revolves, the lower part of the circumference passes through the coloring matter, which is then removed from the whole circumference of the cylinder, except the engraved pattern, by an elastic steel blade placed in contact with the cylinder. So I think what he's describing there is, if you've ever seen screen printing, like for t-shirts done, where they lay the screen on top of the t-shirt and then they have like a squeegee kind of thing that they pull down over it, so that it pulls the paint or the fabric medium over it. I think that's what's happening here. So the cylinder would spin through some dye or paint, whatever, the medium to print the fabric, and then there's some kind of scraper then that takes all the paint off of the places that would not be printed. It would just be the engraving. A piece of cloth may thus be printed and dried in 1 or 2 minutes, which by the old method would have required the application of the block 448 times. So yeah, this is huge, really. I mean, think about it, like this early industrial revolution stuff. And a lot of this earlier industrial revolution stuff is fabric. I mean, you've got jacquard weaving, you've got the printing, of course you've got the steam trains, but a lot of this stuff, it's the Industrial Revolution surely was started, around textiles. At first, only the outline was printed on the cylinder, the fillings being carried out by block printing. But in course of time, machines were invented which printed various colors by successive cylinders, and ultimately numerous colors were printed at one operation. These mechanical improvements, however, were marked by retrogression from an artistic point of view. Oh, I think we're going to get into some insults here. The patterns were of necessity a short repeat, rarely more than 9 or 12 inches, and the designer had to confine his pattern rigorously to the space at his disposal. It did not matter so much for dress materials, but important furnishing designs could not be carried out thus, and have continued to be printed by the old method, where the best effects had to have been required down to the present day, though the old dyes are no longer used. I'm guessing this is to make sure that, for, draperies and upholstery, I don't know. A most interesting little book was published in 1789 by a man named O'Brien, called A Treatise on Calico Printing. He had himself been engaged in cotton manufacture and was well qualified to describe the trade as it then was, just at the parting of the ways. The processes he describes are the old ones with the madder colorings used with their attendant washings and boilings, and the printing is the old block printing of 100 years before. But he knows of the new methods, though he ignores them as much as they may be. Though he ignores them as much as may he. Okay. Whether this is because he indeed knew but little of them, or, which is perhaps more likely, because he thought the knowledge so valuable that he did not want it to be communicated to too many people, it is not quite clear. Whatever the reason, there is little about printing machines or the newly invented dyes and colors. He was writing mainly for Londoners, as he says of the new methods. Innovations, particularly of a mechanical principle, are spreading pretty widely in the country, and machines of various constructions are increasingly about town. And I venture many town printers will hardly credit that engraved cylinders perform as expeditiously as the common pin ones, that a machine for block printing was invented and used some time with which anyone could print as easily as use a winch, and that in machine printing, 4 cylinders may be used at once in different colors. As he points out, this mechanical reproduction was sure to lead to a lowering of the price, not only of the reproductions, but also of the originals, for he pertinently inquires, what person would willing give 5 or 6 shillings a yard if their very servants can have an imitation of, or what has nearly the effect, for 2 or 3? Clearly, the main result of the mechanical improvements was not finer workmanship or more beautiful effects. He's mentioned that a couple times over the chapters. But the lowering of the cost of production, which continued until 1835. Edward Baines Jr. writes, "The humblest classes have now the means of as great neatness and even gaiety of dress as the middle and upper classes of that last age. A country wake of the 19th century may display as much finery as a drawing room of the 18th. And the peasant's cottage may at this day, with good management, have a handsome furniture for beds, windows, and tables, as the house of a substantial tradesman 60 years ago." So it's basically like, well, the stuff is just made cheaper and faster. It's definitely not better. And now the low-class people have it too. So real quick, we'll look at 3 print dresses, late 18th, early 19th century. They look late 18th to me. It could very well be like maybe the first decade of the 19th century, but those are pretty 18th century looking, so the cut. It is interesting to have these notes by contemporary writers as to the classes who made use of the chintzes and cottons, as so often novelists and painters like to dress their dairymaids and country girls of the 17th and early 18th centuries in flowered muslins and fresh print dresses. So those dairymaids would not have been wearing these beautiful dresses. They would be wearing some moldy old wool thing. Copyright was another point on which O'Brien has much to say. It is really extraordinary that before 1787, when it was increased to 3 months, patterns were only copyrighted for 2 months. 2 months! And it seems curious that manufacturers would not even wait that short time before copying a popular pattern, but risked lawsuits and penalties to take advantage of another man's success. Why, they couldn't even wait a couple months. I mean, at least today when, the Chinese factories knock off people's designs, they might wait a little longer than 2 months. Different patterns were issued each year for dress stuffs. We are rather apt to talk of the fashions of our great-great-grandmothers as if they lasted unchanging for years. But in the matter of dress cottons, there was a persistent call for new and varied designs. The range of colors which could be used for printing cotton was gradually being extended, and it was the constant effort of inventors to make it more complete. Green was a color green, like poison green. Green was a color which resisted all efforts for a long time. Sometimes experimenters thought they had discovered a fast tint, but their hopes came to nothing. Once a grant of £2,000 was actually made to an experimenter, Dr. Richard Williams by name, who claimed to have at last found the secret of solid green and bright yellow dyes, which were indeed fast. However, very shortly it was proved that his dyes were, as a matter of fact, fugitive, which just means they washed out. He claimed the support of several friends to whom he had given handkerchiefs, which had proved quite satisfactory in wear, but alas, their evidence was of no use. The handkerchiefs were pocket handkerchiefs, and though fast as far as soap and water went, to sunlight they were fugitive. The printers, in order to produce bright green, had to continue to use an impression of yellow over blue until about 1809, when Oberkampf invented the long sought-for solid green. The Journal des Commerces. Don't you love my French? The Journal of Commerce, for the 18th of July, 1810, announces the fact in the following tones. We are able to make the very important announcement that several lengths have been printed with a solid green in one single impression. This discovery is one of the most valuable instances of the application of chemistry to manufacture. A neighbor nation who are rivals has offered a large prize, 2,000 guineas, to the discoverer of this color. However, the discovery has been made in France, so the prize in England has not been won. This color was brought to England by Samuel Widmer, a member of the Joy firm, Jouy, which communicated it to those English and Scottish firms who could, in return, show him some of the processes in which Great Britain was ahead of France. Paisley thus received the green color, and also Manchester. And now, when we say Paisley, that's Paisley, Scotland. And also Manchester, where the machine for printing 3 colors simultaneously was shown to him in exchange. It was still a novelty to him, though it had been in use here for many years. By the same means, he purchased permission to make drawings of a cotton spinning machine, from which the first to be employed in France was made in 1812. It is useful to remember that cottons printed with a single color green must be of later origin than 1810, though the reverse is not always the case. Many block printers used the 2-color green for many years after this date. Where blue and yellow entered into the composition of, say, a group of flowers in natural colors, it, of course, did away with the extra printing of green if the color were obtained by the use of the 2 colors superimposed. On the other hand, the solid green was invaluable for single-color green prints. A dull grayish green had been known previously, which had been much used, but it was extremely subdued, almost dust-colored. Turkey red was another color which was much used for printing the smaller patterns which were popular in the early 19th century. They were favored when a hard-wearing fabric was required, as they did not quickly show soil marks. The patterns were generally copied from Indian pine designs, and according to our ideas, are not very beautiful. Not very beautiful. However, for generations, these prints in color, which are known as Paisley patterns, have found favor. And so he's saying the name Paisley versus the place Paisley. Turkey red has been known in Asia and Eastern Europe from early times, thus spreading to green about the last half of the 17th century. Let's see. Turkey red has been known in Asia and Eastern Europe from early times, thence spreading to green about the last half of the 17th century. In 1760, Turkey red dye works were founded in France at Rouen, and from thence introduced to Scotland. A Frenchman named Papillon founded a Turkey red dye works at Glasgow at the end of the 18th century. And that is the end of that chapter. And so real quick, let's look at a couple of pictures. This is a fine Georgian chintz in full brilliant coloring, except we can only see it in black and white. If this is such full brilliant coloring, why, man? Why? Why didn't you show it in color? But yes, that's very, very chintz. I feel like Baltimore album quilt shows will always have some of these chintz prints that have been, cut apart and broderie pursed. And then this is an example of a print from wood blocks on canvas. The colors used are pigments, Dutch 17th century. It's such a tiny little wood block. It's hard to see kind of what's going on in there, but there's a lot going on in there. All right. So next time, chapter 7, we will look at how chintzes were used in England during the Georgian period. So, what year is this book? This is 1923. So it's the Chintz Book by MacIv Percival. I need to repair it. But I got this. It's not a terribly expensive book if you want to look for it. I had to order mine from England. So that was what was expensive about it, was the shipping. I think the book itself was like $10 or $15, but then I had to pay that much in shipping. So, but you might be able to find a local copy of it. But yeah, it's a pretty ordinary looking book, but it has this beautiful color plates that I showed earlier. So, and I wanted to think that MacIv Percival was like, some jaunty Scottish man, but alas, I think he's just a posh British antiques writer. He wrote some books about furniture, fans. He wrote about fans, so have to check those out sometime if those books are available. I haven't really looked hard for them. So, all right, you guys, I gotta go get dressed for a benefit. So, my bleach stained poison green t-shirt. There's the bleach. Right there. Yeah, it's not gonna fly at the benefit. So, I will see you guys on Monday. I hope that you have a wonderful weekend. Hope you have a good Friday, and the rest of your Friday Eve is fantastic. Oh, thank you. You know, it's one of Mary's. It's one of Mary Fonz's Quilt Nerd shirts, when she did all the colors. So, yes, have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and yeah, I hope you stay cool because it's supposed to get hot here where I am, and get some sewing done and have a good, relaxing weekend. And happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. So take care, you guys, and I will see you soon. Mwah!